I've walked through noise, through doubts, through moments where the world kept telling me to wait, to settle, to choose what was easy. I listened, I learned, and I stayed patient, because love isn't found in hurry, it's found in clarity. Today I stand still, not because I'm unsure, but because I finally am. After all the searching, all the silent lessons, all the almost, I didn't just find love, I recognized it. This isn't about perfection, it's about truth. About the one who felt like home even before I knew I was looking for a place to rest. Finally, I choose her. I didn't wake up one day suddenly brave. I became brave slowly by listening to my own heart when it spoke softly, by letting time teach me what noise never could. I moved through seasons where love felt like a question mark, where feelings arrived too early or too late, where connection knocked but didn't stay. I learned not to chase what runs, not to hold what isn't ready to be held. I learned that love isn't proven by how loudly it announces itself, but by how calmly it remains when everything else falls away. And somewhere along that quiet road, without forcing it, without demanding clarity before it was ready, I found myself standing in front of a truth that didn't argue with me. It simply existed. For a long time, I thought choosing meant giving something up. I thought choosing meant closing doors, losing options, shrinking my world. But the more I listened, the more I understood that real choosing does the opposite. It opens something inside you. It gives shape to your days. It gives weight to your promises. Choosing isn't about restriction, it's about direction. And direction only becomes clear when you stop running from yourself. I stopped running. I let myself be still long enough to feel what was real, and what was real was her presence, steady and unafraid, patient without asking for proof, strong without needing control. I've seen love that burns fast and disappears. I've seen passion that feels powerful but leaves you empty. I didn't want that. I wanted something that could sit beside me in silence and not feel like absence. I wanted something that didn't need constant reassurance, something that trusted the pauses as much as the words. With her, silence never felt heavy. It felt shared, like two people standing under the same sky, not rushing to name the stars, just knowing they were there. That kind of love doesn't shout, it doesn't compete, it doesn't perform, it stays. There were moments when doubt tried to speak louder than truth, moments when fear dressed itself as logic and told me to wait longer, to be more certain, to protect myself from vulnerability. But fear always asks for guarantees. Love never does. Love asks for honesty. And honesty required me to admit that I already knew. I had known in the way my shoulders relaxed around her, in the way time softened instead of slipping away, in the way my future stopped feeling abstract and started feeling personal. I didn't imagine her or my life. She fit into it naturally, like she had been walking beside me long before I noticed. I've made mistakes before. I've confused attention for connection, chemistry for commitment. I've held on too tightly and let go too late. Those lessons stayed with me, not as regrets, but as teachers. They taught me how to recognize what doesn't demand I become someone else to be loved. With her, I didn't need to perform strength. I could simply be steady. I didn't need to hide my doubts. I could share them. I didn't need to rush my healing. I was allowed to arrive as I was, unfinished, learning, human. Choosing her wasn't a dramatic moment. There was no sudden music, no perfect timing, no applause from the world. It was quieter than that. It was a decision that settled into my bones. It felt like alignment, like finally walking in the same direction as my own values. I realized that love isn't something you fall into and hope to survive. It's something you step into with intention. It's waking up every day willing to protect what you've built, even on days when it's inconvenient, even on days when it asks more of you than you plan to give. I choose her not because she completes me, but because she walks with me, not because she fills a void, but because she respects my wholeness. I choose her because she sees my flaws without trying to fix me, because she believes in growth without forcing change. With her, love feels like partnership, not possession. It feels like two lives standing side by side, choosing to move forward together without erasing their individual paths. There's a kind of courage in staying, in committing when the world celebrates options and exits. I'm not afraid of staying anymore. I'm not afraid of building something that takes time. I understand now that depth doesn't happen overnight. Trust doesn't arrive fully formed. It's earned in small moments, in consistency, in showing up even when there's nothing to gain except integrity. She showed up like that, again and again, without promises she couldn't keep, without conditions disguised as love. I watched how she treated people when no one was watching. I listened to how she spoke about her past, Not with bitterness, but with understanding. I noticed how she handled conflict not as a battle to win, but as a space to understand. Those things mattered more to me than grand gestures ever could. Love lives in the details, in how someone listens, in how they wait, in how they choose kindness when it's easier to choose distance. For the first time, I didn't feel like love was pulling me away from myself. It was bringing me closer. It made me more honest, more grounded, more patient. It reminded me that strength isn't about control. It's about consistency. It's about choosing the same person again and again, not because you're trapped, but because you're convinced. I didn't need the world to approve this choice. I needed to respect it. I know that choosing her means choosing responsibility. It means choosing communication over silence, effort over comfort, presence over escape. I'm not romanticizing it, I'm accepting it. Love isn't always gentle, sometimes it's work. Sometimes it asks you to look at parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. But with her, that work feels meaningful. It feels like building, not repairing. It feels like growth, not survival. I didn't arrive at this decision because everything was perfect. I arrived because it was real. Because when I imagined the future, she wasn't an accessory to it, she was part of the foundation. I could see ordinary days with her, and they didn't scare me. They grounded me, shared mornings, shared worries, shared laughter that didn't need an audience. That's the life I want. Not a highlight reel, but a steady rhythm. Finally, choosing her feels like honoring the journey that led me here. Every delay, every wrong turn, every moment of loneliness that taught me patience. None of it was wasted. It prepared me to recognize what was healthy when it arrived, to value peace over excitement, to understand that love doesn't need to hurt to be deep. It doesn't need chaos to be intense. Sometimes the deepest love feels calm, and calm is not boring. Calm is safe. I choose her knowing we will change, knowing life will test us, knowing there will be days when choosing feels heavier than others. But I also know that she doesn't run from difficulty. She doesn't disappear when things get real, and I don't either. This choice isn't about certainty of outcomes, it's about certainty of intention. I'm here, I'm present, I'm willing. This is me standing in my truth without spectacle, without fear of vulnerability, saying that love is not something I wait for anymore. It's something I participate in. It's something I protect. It's something I choose with open eyes and a steady heart. After all the noise quieted, after all the distractions fell away, after I learned to listen instead of chase, I understood that this moment didn't need permission. It only needed honesty. And honesty brought me here, choosing her, choosing the kind of love that doesn't fade when the lights go down, choosing a connection that feels like home while still letting me grow, choosing a future built on respect, patience, and the courage to stay, choosing her not as an ending, but as a beginning that keeps unfolding. One deliberate step, one shared breath, one quiet decision at a time, finally choosing her because my heart stopped asking questions and started offering commitment, because my silence turned into clarity, because love stopped being an idea and became a practice, because standing beside her feels like standing in my own truth, because this choice feels less like a leap and more like a return to myself, because every part of me that learned to wait now understands why. Because this is not about proving anything to the world, but about honoring what feels right inside me. Because choosing her is choosing presence over distance, depth over distraction, meaning over motion. Because this is where my steps slow down and my intentions become clear. Because I'm ready to build, ready to stay, ready to choose again tomorrow and the day after, ready to let love be quiet and strong and real as it continues to grow without needing an ending, without needing applause, without needing to be explained, just lived, just chosen, just held with care, as the journey continues forward into shared days that unfold naturally, steadily, honestly together, still choosing, still present, still open, still walking side by side, still becoming, still believing, still committing, still choosing her, as the path keeps going and the story keeps breathing, and the love keeps deepening without needing a final word, without closing the door on what's ahead, without stopping the motion of becoming. Because this choice lives on in every moment that follows and every step that remains to be taken as we move forward in the quiet certainty of what we have chosen and continue to choose every day without hesitation and without an end in sight. I used to think commitment was a promise you make once, a line you cross and never look back, but life taught me differently. Commitment is not a single moment. It's a series of quiet decisions made over and over again, especially on days when no one is watching and nothing feels dramatic. It's choosing the same direction even when the road feels ordinary. And with her, ordinary stopped feeling small. It started feeling meaningful. I realized that real commitment doesn't steal your freedom, it gives your freedom a purpose. There was a time when I avoided words like forever and always, not because I didn't believe in them, but because I respected them too much to use them lightly. I watched people promise things they weren't ready to protect. I watched love get treated like a feeling instead of a responsibility. I didn't want to speak commitment until I understood what it asked of me. With her, I understood. Commitment meant listening even when I was tired. It meant staying present even when distraction felt easier. It meant choosing honesty over comfort, patience over pride, effort over escape. She never demanded commitment from me. She never tried to rush my clarity. And that's what made it real. She allowed space without creating distance. She trusted the process without controlling the outcome. In that space, my intentions became clear. I didn't feel trapped by the idea of staying. I felt grounded, like planting roots after years of moving without direction. Commitment stopped feeling like a risk and started feeling like stability. I began to notice how my definition of strength changed around her. Strength was no longer about standing alone. It was about standing accountable, about showing up consistently, not just when it felt good, but when it mattered. Commitment meant being reliable with my words, careful with my actions, aware of how even small choices could shape something bigger. It meant understanding that love grows through attention, not assumption. There were days when I questioned myself not because of her, but because commitment asks you to confront your own patterns. It asks you to see where you've been careless, where you've avoided depth, where you've confused independence with isolation. Being with her made me reflect, not in a painful way, but in a clarifying way. I saw who I was becoming, and I respected that version of myself more. Commitment didn't erase my individuality, it sharpened it. I learned that commitment isn't about perfection, it's about repair, it's about staying engaged. When misunderstandings happen, when emotions don't line up neatly, when life introduces pressure. With her, conflict wasn't a threat, it was a conversation, a chance to understand instead of withdraw. That taught me that commitment isn't fragile, it's resilient. It bends without breaking, it adapts without losing its core. I didn't commit because I was afraid of losing her. I committed because I respected what we were building. Fear-based commitment is heavy. It suffocates. This felt different. It felt chosen, not forced. It felt like walking forward with awareness instead of being pushed from behind. I wasn't holding on out of insecurity. I was staying because it felt right to invest where trust was growing. Commitment also taught me about time. I stopped measuring love in intense moments and started seeing it in consistency, in regular check-ins, in shared routines, in the way she remembered small things about me, not to impress me, but because she cared. I wanted to be that kind of presence for her too. Not a temporary excitement, but a steady support. Someone she could rely on without question. I understood that committing to her also meant committing to growth, to not staying the same when better was possible, to not hiding behind old habits when vulnerability was required. She didn't ask me to change who I was. She inspired me to become more intentional with who I was becoming. Commitment became an agreement to evolve together, not at the same pace, but with the same respect. There's a quiet dignity in commitment. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up early, stays late, and handles what needs to be handled. I found myself wanting to protect her peace, not because I owned it, but because I valued it. Commitment meant considering her in my decisions not as an obligation, but as a natural extension of care. I realized that love without commitment is just emotion passing through. Commitment gives love memory, it gives it continuity, it allows it to deepen beyond surface attraction into something that can hold weight. With her, I wasn't interested in temporary closeness. I wanted continuity. I wanted shared history. I wanted to build something that could be looked back on with pride. Committing also meant accepting uncertainty. There are no guarantees, no perfect outcomes. But there is intention, there is effort, there is the willingness to face uncertainty together instead of alone. I wasn't committing to a flawless future. I was committing to presence through whatever came, to not disappearing when things became inconvenient, to not checking out emotionally when life got complicated. I stopped seeing commitment as something that limits options. I started seeing it as something that sharpens focus. When you choose one path, you stop being distracted by all the others. You put your energy where it can actually grow something. With her, my energy felt well placed. It didn't feel wasted or uncertain. It felt invested. I also learned that commitment requires humility. It asks you to admit when you're wrong, to apologize without defensiveness, to listen without preparing your response. With her, I wanted to do that work, not because I was afraid of losing her, but because I valued keeping things honest and healthy. Commitment meant protecting the connection, not my ego. There were moments when I realized how easy it would be to walk away, and how meaningful it was to stay. Staying became a choice, not a habit. Each time I chose it, it felt stronger. Commitment grew through repetition, through showing up again and again with the same intent.